Good day, everyone. This is Manny Varela, Business Relationship Manager at DevOps Institute. Welcome to the Value Stream Mapping Ask the Author webinar with Mike Orzen. Also today with us, we'll have Jayne Groll, who is the CEO of the DevOps Institute. We have scheduled some time at the end of this session for questions, so please use the questions feature on the panel to post any requests or questions that you may have. So to get this thing started, I will be posting some questions here to help Mike and Jayne better understand the audience that we have today. So I will post 3 questions for your reply. And we will start off with the first question now. So how would you describe your current role? DevOps manager or team leader, lean coach, value stream mapping leader or coach, value stream manager, or other. And we'll give about 10 more seconds here. And we'll end it here in 3, 2, 1. And we'll close that one out. And we're going to share. So Mike and Jayne, looks like we've got DevOps manager, team leaders, pretty high one there, and a lot of others. So perhaps we can find out what that other is. So I'll post my next question here. What is your experience with value stream mapping? Novice, advanced beginner, competent, proficient, and the expert. And we'll close it out here in about 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and we'll close it out here. Looks like novice and advanced beginner are the dominant choices here for today. And we'll move on to the next question. Oops, sorry. Okay, so how mature is your organization's DevOps adoption? Haven't started yet, preparing to get started, underway, and mature and improving. About 10 more seconds here. Looks like we've got a pretty good participation. 3, 2, 1, and we'll close this out. So looks like we've got quite a bit that are underway, and many more right behind that are preparing to get started. So it looks like we've got a good bunch here. So let's move forward with the presentation. And without further ado, let me introduce you to Jayne Groll, who will take you through the next steps of this session. Jayne, how are you today?
Hi, Manny. Hi, everyone. So glad that you're joining us. Particularly excited about today's Ask the Author. Many of you know that value stream mapping has emerged as a key practice inside of DevOps, and really delighted to have worked with Mike Orzen on this course. So let's tell you a little bit about DevOps Institute for those of you who are not familiar, a little bit about Mike, and then we'll move forward through some of the details of the course. So Mike, if you can move us to the next slide, please. So a little bit about our agenda today. So, we'll start with a little bit of welcome and introductions, but what we really want to focus on is what is value stream mapping and why is it important? Some of you may have heard the term, as we saw in the polls. There is a good many of you that are novices, and that's okay. Some of you have dabbled perhaps in value stream mapping, but the opportunity with this course is to be able to improve your proficiency. And so talk a little bit about value stream mapping, why it's important. And then we really want to talk a little bit about what's inside of this course, how it was built, some of the key concepts. But the most important part of today is the ability to ask Mike questions. So we made Mike available for today's session, and we're really hoping that those listening will engage and ask whatever questions come to mind. For those of you who are not familiar with the DevOps Institute, we're really proud of being the continuous learning community around emerging DevOps. You know, our vision is to facilitate a community, a global community, and give our members access to really the most innovative, inspirational, transformational, and those are not just words, right? They're really significant promises of what DevOps intends to provide in the form of its content, its courses, and the certifications that we accredit. Our certifications are not delivered by DevOps Institute. We have right now over 100 partners around the world in 28 countries, and their goal is to be able to provide education around DevOps practices and principles. And then, you know, based on what you learn, continuous learning is a lifelong journey. And so we're hoping that we can inspire discussion, collaboration, and transformation. And we could talk more about that towards the end of today's session. But we really do hope you'll go to our website and join our community. It's free, and it opens up opportunities like the one that we're going to go through today. So let me introduce Mike Orzen. As I said at the beginning, it has been my absolute delight and pleasure to work with Mike on this course. Hi, Mike.
Good morning. I think I may be muted.
Nope, we hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, great. Good morning, Jayne. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks, Mike. We're really happy to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been involved with continuous improvement and the lean community for most of my professional career. And early on in the late 80s, I had this affinity towards programming and dabbling with my PC. And my boss said, "Can you apply the concepts of lean manufacturing to IT?" And I said, "I don't see why not." And we pretty much made it up as we were going along. This was quite a long time ago, but since then, the body of knowledge around how we apply lean concepts to the IT environment has grown and grown. First, in terms of lean IT, and we saw the growth of Agile, and then most recently, the explosion in DevOps. And I'm just real excited about that, and just amazed at how far we've come in really just a couple of decades. So from that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just move us to the next slide, please.
Okay, great. So really, what we're here to talk about is the critical value of this thing called value stream mapping. A lot of people have heard about it, but very few people have really experienced the power of getting a group of people together and going through a value stream mapping experience. So the obvious question is, what is value stream mapping? Well, first of all, let's define a value stream. A value stream is everything we do, good, bad, and indifferent, to create and deliver value for a customer. So when we think of the SDLC, for example, it's everything we do, including the wasteful steps, including the redundancies, including the breakdowns. We need to figure out what that is and make sure we all see the same thing before we can move forward. So how do you capture this? That's a lot of complexity for most organizations. This kind of work hasn't not necessarily been done. We see the value stream from our perspective only, but not from a holistic view. we need to start viewing all of the IT lifecycle as an interdependent chain of events. And value stream mapping positions us to do that as we look at two critical flows, the flow of information and the flow of materials, as it moves from concept through development, through test, to release, to production, and of course to iteration. That whole process we need to deeply, deeply understand. We take the core concepts of create and manage value to create flow, and a lot's been written on flow, but this is the relentless forward progression of value to our customers as quickly, as completely, as accurately as possible. We want to introduce pull in our system so we're not overproducing. We want to eliminate three key things: non-value added work, variability in our system, and pushing the work forward where it simply sits in a queue waiting for somebody else to work on it. These are all enemies of flow, and these concepts are not that difficult to understand, but what is very challenging is how do we really see it and how do we really make improvement? That's how where value stream mapping really comes in to support DevOps. First of all, we need everybody in the organization, everybody on our team, to clearly see where we are and where we need to be. And what I see in many organizations is we're excited about DevOps, we're excited about the promise of improvement, but we really do not have clarity on where we are right now. So if I don't know where I am right now, I cannot clearly move to where I need to be because I cannot perceive accurately the gap between the current state and the future state. And this is essential. If I don't have that, it's a little bit like I'm driving in a city, I don't know which city it is, and I'm moving towards a goal. This is not the way to do it. I need to know my starting point and iterate as I move towards an improved future state. I also need a shared understanding. I see many organizations that have pockets of understanding, but we don't have a shared understanding of where we are and where we're going. This is critical because we can actually work at cross ends when we're not all on the same page, and I think we've all experienced that. We also need to have criteria for success. It's easy to say, well, we're going for higher quality levels or more rapid deployments or less defects after release. That's all wonderful, but we need much more specifics around specific processes, how they're performing, when they're performing, and the gap again between where we are and our next step in improvement. Often I see little to no prioritization of activities. This is also essential. So I need everybody on the team to be very clear on what is the sequence of activities that we're doing as we move towards improvement. If not, we can actually step on each other's toes. And once again, particularly when you're talking about a large SDLC value stream, we need that coordination. Value stream mapping helps us in all these categories. So what we've done in this course, which I'm really excited about, is create an experience. We've all been to workshops and courses that are interesting, but at the end of the day, I can't do that much. It's fascinating material, but often we go back to work and we say, what do I do with the material? And this is much more of a how-to course. As Jayne likes to describe it, it's a drill down. Let's drill down to the bedrock and really go deep. So this is so much more experiential than it is theoretical. Of course, we share the tools and methods that needs to be in place, or else you can't do the value stream mapping. But this is intended to take a broad base of attendees, people with little to no experience in value stream mapping, and people that might have a decent amount of experience, because what I find is many, quote, experienced value stream mappers really don't have the support or the guidance on how to do this effectively in an IT environment. Most of the books out there are set value stream mapping in a manufacturing environment. There's a few out there that talk about IT, but they're written by non-IT professionals. So it's more of an estimate on how it might work. The centerpiece of this course is to use a real case study from a very large organization going through a DevOps transformation. So it adds that degree of detail that I don't think you'll find anywhere else. And of course, the whole thing is intended to supplement the certification courses such as the DevOps Foundation. So really what this is all about is delivering a great learning experience for the people. So Jayne, do you want to address this slide?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So, the first thing to know about drill down courses in general is that they're not certifications. So, there's a place for certifications and there's a place for what I call amplified knowledge, or as Mike said, we call them drill downs because we really do want to drill down into the bedrock. So this is intended to be 16 hours. So in a classroom would be 2 days, and our partners deliver it in a variety of different forms and formats. But it is 16 hours, and it's specifically about applying value stream mapping in an IT environment, right? So as Mike said, this is born out of lean manufacturing, but very much applies not only just to an IT environment, but specifically to those that are taking a transformational approach to DevOps. One of the, I think, really critical elements and what differentiates this course from many others that may be available about value stream mapping is Mike built an amazing case study. And so this case study allows learners, whether the learners are all from the same organization or in an open enrollment from different organizations, to step outside their own environment and work within a very, very realistic case study so that they can learn how to apply value stream mapping and then translate that back into their own environment. So it kind of depersonalizes it in some senses and gives a practice platform in which to work. And it's really going beyond the theoretical. Mike said that before when we talked about what is a drill down course. A drill down course is meant to be very hands-on, very experiential. It's about how to apply this, right? How to actually do this and take this back to your organization. Mike also mentioned about visibility, and that part of the reason that value stream mapping has emerged, particularly in DevOps as a strong practice, is that we have to be able to make the flow of work visible. If our goal is to be able to increase flow, right? Continuous delivery is a great example of that, where we start to look at increasing flow, whether it's through human interaction or automation, then there has to be visibility, and the drill down course will certainly apply that. And then, again, can't emphasize this enough. These drill down courses, and this one in particular, is really meant to be a catalyst of sustained DevOps continuous improvement. And one of the reasons that's so important, and maybe you're one of those folks. So we know that a very large number of people go through DevOps Foundation, and maybe or maybe not, you're a candidate to go on to one of our other certifications like DevOps Leader or DevSecOps or DevOps Test Engineering. But for those that maybe aren't going to continue down a certification path, courses like Value Stream Mapping for DevOps provide ongoing and continuous learning. So regardless of your role in the organization, it's very, very important that you become a continuous learner. And courses like Value Stream Mapping for DevOps and our series of drill down courses are really intended for that. It's really important to note, again, DevOps Institute doesn't deliver the classes directly, but we do provide the content to our registered education partners around the world, and they will be the ones delivering this.
So why is this course so important? Well, I think, Jayne, you pretty much nailed it, but there really are very few courses on value stream mapping that are specifically for DevOps. And I'm so excited about the fun I had developing this, because of course through DOI I had access to a lot of great DevOps practitioners, and I was able to share this material and say, give it the acid test, look at the reality of the case study, challenge it. Does it hold water? Does it fly? And that experience of kind of having that caliber of professional look at the material was really great, because we're all lifelong learners, and if the day you stop learning is the day you've really stopped embracing what this is all about. And most value stream mapping workshops are really focused on the tools. And we've all been there before. You can get carried away, particularly as IT professionals. Tools are wonderful, tools are racy, tools are fun. But this is much more of a balance on, yes, tell me about the tool, explain the tool to me, but now can I start using the tool? Let's apply the tool in several ways. And although the course we talk about value stream mapping, we also share a couple of other important mapping methodologies that actually augment value stream mapping that frankly I find a lot of people are not aware of and don't use. So it's not about just falling in love with a single tool. It's about a process of transformation. We don't lose sight of that, which I think is very much in line with the vision and mission of the DevOps community. And until you really do this, it's really difficult. I can go to a workshop or read a book on swimming, but until I get wet, it just isn't going to go very deep. And I think Jayne pointed out a really critical issue, and that is not everybody's going to go through a certification path, but I do need everyone in my organization totally engaged in the transformation. I can't say, well, you didn't go through the training, so you can just keep your head down and work. No, that will actually kill our transformation. So this kind of skill, value stream mapping and the experience pulls everybody in and really creates a community of change, which I think is so critical.
And Mike, if you don't mind, I'm going to just add one more thing, because I think it's something that is not necessarily apparent, but very, very important. You know, in DevOps, we talk a lot about delivering value, and we talk about value, you know, time to value as opposed to time to market. And we talk about delivering value, customer value. And until we understand what value means to the customer and how we deliver it and what our stream looks like, organizations will have a difficult time understanding what value really is, right? What is the value the customer is getting out of your product or service? And so, you know, I think one of the aspects of value stream mapping, particularly in DevOps, is if the goal is to deliver value faster, how do you know what value actually is until you start mapping the product, right?
Yeah, that's it's a great point, Jayne. And the first place we start is with that very question, because often there's just assumption that we know what the customer wants or values. We know that, let's just move forward. And that's part of the magic of value stream mapping. It turns out that I was just reading recently, a large part of our brain is devoted to visual concepts, and that there is just something incredible about mapping a concept. You don't have to be a great artist, but even a stick drawing, let alone a value stream map, opens up a part of our brain that often we don't access. And that can lead to this deeper understanding, and certainly around the area of value. If everybody isn't on the same page around how we define and improve value to our customer, then we could be climbing the wrong ladder. So a question that comes up, of course, is this course right for you? Is this something that I might want to do? Well, clearly, if you're a team leader in IT, a manager, a director, you'd certainly want to be aware of these skills. If you're a change agent or any kind of a practitioner, again, this is pretty important. If you're a DevOps coach or a consultant, it's also something that you really need in your toolkit. And to not be aware of this, or to not be really good at applying it, I think would just potentially hinder or burden, or could even create a barrier to transformation. So you just simply need to be aware of these value stream concepts and how to get everybody on the same page in terms of understanding and support. So that's why I think this course applies to so many stakeholders. So how was this course built? Well, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and this was basically taking that experience and blending it with some core DevOps concepts, and then saying, how do we make this real? If we would have stopped right there and said, here's the lean IT and the value stream mapping concepts, here's the DevOps concepts, I think we would have looked at the course and said, yeah, it was kind of interesting, thank you very much. The real linchpin for the course, I believe, is the case study. And by taking by working with a very large organization with embedded legacy IT systems, with an incredible critical need to move forward towards DevOps and everything it offers, because of the disruptive market and the shifts at hand, it was just an obvious thing to take this case study, build it in such a way that we don't just learn about value stream mapping, we actually go through the experience of value stream mapping through the case study. So what you'll learn is not only how to create a current state value stream map, but how to move to a future state value stream map. And this is, I would say, one of the critical skill sets that it's not intuitive. It's not as simple as we might expect. And you just have to kind of walk through that. You got to take that journey to know what it's about. And then this is about, how do I, now that I've got these value streams maps, how do I sustain a DevOps transformation? How do I make this truly continuous? Because the excitement and the joy of quote kickoff, it wears off. The glow wears off. And how do I keep that going? And a value stream map plays a key role there. And then, of course, when we're talking in DevOps, we're talking about streamlining, automating core processes, automating everything we can. First, we need to improve a process, streamline a process, remove the waste, and we have to begin with the end in mind. If we just make an improvement and automate it without an integrated picture of what that's going to look like, we can actually not help. We can actually have to go back and redo things because we have not really built for flow throughout the entire SDLC. So this is about, of course, driving quality, controlling costs through improved productivity, but also risk mitigation, and value stream mapping helps there. And last but certainly not least, how do we align business services with IT to make sure, as Jayne was alluding to earlier, we truly have an accurate and complete picture of what we mean by driving and delivering value, and what we mean by reducing non-value added activities. How do we align that? And again, value stream mapping is a wonderful tool to have that dialogue. Jayne?
So the course will be available to our partners in November. And so each of the partners will ramp up their portfolios and their trainers in order to get ready for the delivery. So please come to our website, www.devopsinstitute.com. Our rep directory is available to identify a partner, rep registered education partner. to identify a partner that will be delivering the course, through December and into 2018. So here's the fun part, right, Mike? Here's
Yeah.
where we're hoping that Manny's got some really great questions from people attending today to ask us about the course, about value stream mapping, and pretty much whatever falls in between the two. So Manny, what do you got for us?
Okay, yeah, just a couple quickie deals here. These slides will be made available, and this presentation will be is being recorded, and that recording will be made available. So, first question down there. First question from Santosh, I think. Can you describe briefly or explain what VSM is in 2 minutes with a non-IT example?
Sure, absolutely. With a non-IT example, so VSM is a visual map or illustration of a process. So we've got all VSM maps begin with the trigger. In other words, what starts the process? This could be an idea. This could be customer demand. You asked for a non-IT process. Let's use the process of making breakfast. So the trigger might be it's in the morning and I'm hungry and I need to put something in my stomach. Then basically we're going to capture what are the steps of making breakfast. Now, as we talked about before, we would say, what do we value in breakfast? So we might say the critical elements are nutrition, flavor, and speed. We want to make our breakfast but not take so long, but we want a good healthy breakfast. And then we would say, so what are the steps to that? Now, this is not a process map where we're going to the detail of we open the refrigerator and we pull out certain items and we turn on the stove. That's too much detail. A value stream map is a higher level view of this. And so we might say, well, the core steps are I stage the food, I prepare the food, I consume the food, and I clean my kitchen, or I clean up. We might break that into say 3, 4, 5 steps. And then out of that, what we're doing is we're really looking at several essential elements. We're looking at the time it takes to do the work. We're looking at the time it takes for the work to sit around or wait, or we call it queue time. So it's the time that we're actually adding value, such as when we're chopping the vegetables or scrambling our egg, and the time that we're not adding value, when something's just sitting or waiting, such as dirty dishes sitting in the sink would be non-value added work. We're also looking at a measure of quality. So here we're looking at what is the percent of the work that is complete and accurate the first time. So if I burn the toast, obviously that's not complete and accurate or high quality work. So we're looking at these things, and we're also looking at flow. So are things moving, are things sitting, and what's the overall quality? Now, when we get this, we can say, is this really, in terms of our total time, in terms of our quality, in terms of the original value expectation of the customer, in this case us, did we make the meal in the right amount of time? Is it nutritious? How much value added work is there? If we say, well, it was a nice meal, but we made a huge mess and it took 90 minutes and I'm late to work, well, obviously there's a little gap between where we are and where we need to be. So that's kind of value stream mapping at a very high level. I guess one more thing I'd add is a great way to think of a value stream map is a closed loop system. So in DevOps, we talk about the importance of feedback loops. All effective value stream maps, and often we don't see this in a current state value stream map, but we need a feedback system between core steps in the value stream map and overall throughout the value stream map from the beginning to the end? Do we have a feedback system that actually drives improvement and lets us know whether or not the value stream is functioning as required? I hope that helps.
Great, thank you, Mike. Yeah, that was a good answer. Jayne, do you have any?
Now,
I said I'm hungry.
No.
After Mike's talking about breakfast, yeah.
Right. So
it was a great example. No, seriously, Mike, it was a great example because I think when we start to look at, theoretical concepts such as value, which could have so many levels of interpretation when we take it down to our everyday life, and we understand our own personal value beliefs, right, or our own system of value, then it makes value stream mapping so much more meaningful.
Yes. The potential when you start to map it out, it also opens up a complete collection of tools that are available to us, such as standard work, where we're saying, do we have a documented shared process so we can start to control variability? So a good example of that would be, no, not really. Every time I cook my breakfast, I'm pretty much making it up as I go along. Well, what's the impact on that in terms of the time it takes you and the quality of your breakfast? It's very much hit or miss. I could have a great breakfast. I could have a lousy breakfast. It could take 20 minutes. It can take an hour. So in IT, the business is not going to accept that. And if you're in an IT environment where that's your performance record, you've got a lousy reputation. Because I was at one company, they said it doesn't matter what we ask IT, it's going to be 6 to 9 months and $120,000. It doesn't matter what the question is. And although everybody chuckled, it was painful, because people make jokes because there's truth behind the joke.
Absolutely. And, if you don't mind, I'm gonna just throw one more thing in and kind of give a little bit of an IT spin. So, many of you know I come from the IT service management, ITIL space. And, in the early days when we were doing a lot of process improvement, value stream mapping, if we look at processes like change management, and, I've been doing a lot of writing and speaking lately on change management in a DevOps environment. Now, if you were to value stream map, let's say change management as a process, and looking at flow from, from the value of the change, whether it's a corrective change or an innovative change, all the way through to the delivery of that change, and identify really some of the activities that are certainly value adding, some of those that support value adding, and maybe some of those activities that can be improved or expedited to increase flow, because in today's environment they're no longer necessary and therefore might even be considered, dare I say, waste, right? So when we start to talk about processes and kind of take breakfast back to IT, we look at continuous delivery, which of course is the key process and the spotlight under DevOps. But then we look at other processes like change management, which is such a critical process. And I was teaching a DevOps leader recently, Mike, and I said, well, what activity would you consider waste? And one of the guys said change management, right? Well, right. And that was like, knife in heart, right? So when you start to look at this and look at its application, it really does touch on every process, including business process.
Very much so. That's an excellent point. Yeah, and another area that comes up over and over and over is problem management. In other words, I don't know, hundreds of times I've heard people say, we don't have a robust problem management process, nor do we ever really get to root cause. Well, if that's the case, then we're basically accepting a situation where we're going to be firefighting the same fires or very, very similar fires for the rest of our career. And of course, the whole point of DevOps, when you create velocity and you speed the value stream up, you have to have less firefighting to make that work. The goal, of course, is to eliminate that. In a manufacturing context, that means zero defects.
Right.
In an IT environment, we're talking about zero bugs released. We're talking about no surprises. We're talking about not introducing changes that break stuff. And that level of quality, a lot of people say, in my wildest imagination, I don't see how we could ever get there, not in my lifetime. And the first step is to say, do we really even have clarity around where we are today? And again, the value stream mapping experience really begins to peel the layers of myth and misconception and just assumptions, and we get down to the data and what's really happening. So when we do the value stream mapping, one of the things we're talking about, of course, is how long does something take? And I'm always blown away because I'll say, well, how, or we'll talk about a problem. Well, we never have the information we need to complete this step. Well, you say never. How often is that? Well, all the time. Well, how often is all the time? Well, frequently. Well, how often is frequently? Well, I'm not really sure. Okay, so let's go get the data. And what we find often is the things that we think are the most problematic, such as it happens all the time. Once we look at the data, that's not the biggest problem at all. So we use data to inform ourselves where the biggest problems are. And once we see it within the context of a value stream, we can say, this makes sense. This is the priority, because if we solve this particular step, the numbers are telling us, the data is showing us it's going to have the largest impact. And I've seen that our brains will trick us. We don't rely on data. We rely on impression and assumptions and persuasion. And that's no way to run a business. That's no way to run IT.
It's funny, I just have to laugh. And Santosh, thank you for the question, because, as you can imagine, Mike and I don't have a lot to say about it, right, Mike?
Right.
But right, I mean, it really does, but it really does launch us into looking at applications for value stream mapping that go beyond, let's just architect our continuous delivery pipeline, which is important. Let's not misunderstand that. But it has a much broader appeal in terms of how it can be applied within IT. So Manny, do we have any questions?
Sure. To follow up that question is, what is the most common mistake that you see in people trying to do VSM?
Well, there are several. That's another great question, but there are several. One is people fall into the trap of seeing value stream mapping as another tool in the toolkit and not as a part of an integrated continuous improvement system. So think of value stream mapping as a leverage, as a wonderful tool to move forward, but it's really a connector. It's a methodology to connect ideas and people to drive the deployment, to drive the transformation. And I've just seen too many organizations say, wow, we created a current state value stream map, and it's almost like they think they're done. And you're not even close to well, first of all, I don't think you're ever done, but the value stream map is just the beginning. It's not even close to making improvements. So I'd say I see that over and over again. And that's one. Another one is failure to create a future state value stream map. So often we spend so much energy and time understanding really clearly what's going on, what we call the current condition or the current state. And that's important. But we need to spend as much, perhaps more time on the future state, where we need to go. And a lot of people are so entrenched in their world, it's very, very difficult to move out of that model and to say what needs to change. So the future state map needs to represent a radical shift, not just a little polishing up or of the process. A future state map would not say, well, it's pretty much what we're doing right now. We're just going to have a better problem management function. That's not a future state map, or that's not even close. And what drives a future state map is what I see as perhaps the third common mistake, and that is not having a qualified facilitator or coach in the session. And I've seen many people that are facilitating a value stream session that again understand the tools, but this shift of mindset on how do I move from where we are and what we've been living for the last 20 or 30 years to a completely different paradigm, that's not always present. So in the workshop, we're going to touch on these skills and what is required. And what I find in many organizations is this just takes a little bit of experience. You just have to go in and do it. It's just like anything else. You learn by doing, and the more you do it, the better you get. So I'd say those are kind of the three big mistakes that I see most often.
Great answer, Mike. Thank you. So would you consider VSM as part of a workflow chart that would be part of a something similar to a Visio chart?
Well, that's another good question. If you want to go old school, you actually stay away from Visio when we create the value stream map. And the reason we do that is we need involvement of everyone in the room. So this is very much a hands-on experience. So we get people standing up around a large whiteboard. We have Post-it notes, and you'll actually go through this experience in the workshop. The problem with putting it in Visio, although from an efficiency perspective, we'll say, oh, this makes sense. Let's just build it in Visio and we can share it electronically with everyone. The problem with that is you'll get two people engaged in that process, the facilitator and the person on the keyboard creating the Visio. Everyone else will be on their phone texting their friend that they can't wait until the session's over. And maybe it's not quite that extreme, but you get the picture. It just doesn't capture people in their imagination. Now, there's nothing wrong with after we do the value stream map, if somebody has the time and energy and they want to put it into Visio, you can. And there's an argument to be made that, yeah, we do want that. But old school and effective school says, let's learn by doing this longhand. Longhand is we're going to use paper and pen and Post-it notes and dry erase markers and breakout sessions. And most people are exhausted at the end of a value stream mapping session because they're using parts of their brain that they haven't used in a long time or perhaps ever. So it's a lot of imagination, it's a lot of creativity, it's a lot of engagement. So I heard in that question, I heard the term workflow. Is this a workflow diagram? And I would say not initially. Value stream mapping, and that's another art to value stream mapping that could be a common mistake. I see value stream maps that are too much detail, very much like a workflow diagram. We don't want to go to that level of detail until we have alignment on the areas that we need to focus our improvement on. If not, we'll just be value stream mapping forever. So too much detail is a waste of time and a waste of brain power. But we don't want to go so high up. I've seen value stream maps at 20,000 feet that are of no value to anyone because they're too general and they haven't honed in enough. So it's a little bit like, I guess you could call it the Goldilocks effect. I don't want something too high, I don't want something too detailed. I need something just right. So the just right in value stream mapping is that level that we create all the things we've talked about. We've got clarification of customer value, consensus on what we're doing right now, We have a clear understanding of flow and pull. We understand where our bottlenecks are. We understand our pain points in the value stream system. And we understand the difference between our current state and where we need to go, which would be, of course, a DevOps SDLC type environment. And all of that cycle is what we're walking through. That experience cycle is what we're walking through as we apply the case study in the workshop.
And Mike, if I could jump in, and I don't have anywhere near the same experience that you have in value stream mapping, but one of the things I think that's really kind of cool when you look at organizations that have done this, particularly organizations that are co-located, is leave the sticky notes and the value stream mapping up on a wall that's visible to everyone. And, when an activity is improved or waste is removed, there's kind of a go up and pull the sticky off, right? I mean, so
yes.
It becomes kind of a living part of the organization. Whereas, and again, no deference to tools like Visio or any other type of flow charting, but flow charts tend to get buried in your email, right? Or buried in your file folder, or they're not really, they're not as visible. They're not as interactive as what we've seen in organizations that have really created these really amazing types of just, you walk by them down the hall and you can see it, right? Everybody that enters the hallway or walks down the hallway, and so there's a certain pride. Not that the value stream is perfect, but there's a transparency, I guess, would be the right word to use.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know what I've heard so many times in value stream mapping sessions is people say, I've worked here for 15 years and I never knew that my work impacted your work. In other words, we all are in some ways within our world, within our specialty, and to some degree or another, we all have blinders on. Why? Because IT is complex. So of course we have specializations and special focus, and we go deep and we value expertise in a particular area. But that expertise can also create silos. And if we're trying to create flow in a true value stream concept for velocity and quality and continuous deployment, we can only do that with a systems view. So we have to not only continue to think vertically, which is that deep expertise view, we've got to start seeing and acting horizontally, which is all about creating that flow. And the value stream map, when people see that, they kind of go, it's an aha moment for a lot of people. Now, for companies that are co-located that say, yeah, that's fine for the location where we have the value stream map. What about the other locations? What do we do? Well, I worked with one organization that said, there's nothing stopping us from taking a picture, and they took a picture and then did a large kind of like a poster size printout of both the current state and the future state value stream map, because it was so powerful. And just to your point, Jayne, just having that up on the wall, it was in the team space where everybody could see that. When somebody said, I've got a problem or I've got an issue, the habit was, let's go talk about it in front of the value stream map. And what they discovered was it created this incredible context of understanding where people, again, could start to see relationships that would not have been seen if we were only relying on words alone, just 2 or 3 people talking. It's not the same as those same people talking in front of a visual depiction of the value stream. It's just a different experience.
Great, great. I'm going to give you a 2-part question here. Is the case study something that's spread over 2 days and kind of describes VSM in a DevOps environment, or is it a resource that's applied to the candidate to attend the course? And then the second part would be when is a good time to start VSM?
So the first question is, the case study is used throughout the course. So over the 2 days when we build the current and future state value stream maps, we're relying on the storyline and the data of the case study to apply and learn by doing what this is all about. So I think when you learn by doing, you discover your gaps in understanding. So we can understand something intellectually, but then when we're asked to do it, we say, I'm stuck here. I don't know the next step. I thought I did, but now that I'm doing it, I don't. And that gives the attendee the opportunity to ask a clarifying question and for everyone to learn from everyone else's questions. So even if I don't have the question, somebody else has a great question, I learn as I see that gap close for them. So it really is, the case study is not kind of a standalone tool. It's something very much integrated over the 2 days. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
When is it a good time to, when is the right time to implement value stream mapping?
Value stream mapping. So that's another good question. So I would say there's never a wrong time, but I would add a caveat to that, and that is, many organizations will say, you know, before we do much of anything, let's start with this clear view of where we are and where we need to go. So I've seen some organizations, actually, I'd say 30 to 40% of the companies I've worked with will actually begin with a value stream mapping experience. Why? They want to get everybody on the bus. They want clarity. They also want measurements around success, and value stream mapping supports that too. What are we going to measure? What does winning look like? And can we break it down? So that's really valuable. The only caveat I'd add to that is, don't fall into this common trap that I mentioned earlier, where we do value stream mapping and we say, okay, we're done. We've done value stream mapping. No, it's just the beginning. Now, if you say, well, we're already well on our way in our DevOps transformation, or we've at least started, can we introduce value stream mapping at this point? And the answer is absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would suggest, why don't we have in place a holistic view? It's almost like you're creating, a great way to think about it is you're creating a roadmap. Now, we know that DevOps is all about iterative continuous improvement and iterative learning. So we learn through experimentation, and that's really the essence of lean thinking, lean IT, and DevOps. It's also the essence of agile practice as well. So it's this learning cycle. But if I don't have this vision of where I am and where I need to be, and the cycles of learning I'm using to close the gap between the two, then I'm really not living DevOps. I could be chasing after the next tool or the next book that I read. So I was at a company recently, and they were so enamored with automation that they were just focused on automation. What they had lost track of was the value stream. So that they were doing automation on the infrastructure side and actually working much faster than the overall value stream, and just creating a bottleneck further downstream. And they were kind of, they had good intentions, but basically what they were doing is not seeing the entire SDLC as a system. So if you're experiencing that, in other words, we're getting pockets of improvement, which used to be called islands of lean in a sea of waste. So if you're experiencing islands of improvement, but you still know that your overall value stream is a sea of waste, a value stream map is a wonderful way to stand back a little bit from the picture and have a much more of a holistic view. And that can be useful anywhere in the process of your transformation.
Okay, great. I believe run up against our time here, though I do want to ask a quick question here. Lean versus value stream mapping. Any quick answer there for that?
So lean is a philosophy of clearly identifying value from the customer's perspective, understanding my value stream that creates that value, initiating flow within the value stream, introducing pull where I cannot flow, and then engaging in cycles of continuous improvement as I seek perfection. So that is lean. Value stream mapping is a methodology to facilitate lean. So it's really not an either or. Think of value stream mapping as a methodology and a toolkit to facilitate those 5 steps of lean.
Excellent. Excellent answer. Well, we've run up, we're at the top of the hour here, and so we've run out of time, but I thank you, Mike and Jayne, for an excellent presentation and great answers. And thank you, everyone who has attended. This session's being recorded, and we will be mailing those out via some type of link here in the next week. So thank you very much again, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Manny. Thanks, Mike. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Thank you. Happy Halloween. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.